Hello, this is my presentation on Growing Up Global, the cultural identity of third culture kids. There is a growing population, approximated at 4 million in 2007, of people that grew up overseas, away from their passport country, away from their extended family, immersed in cultures that to many seem too foreign to even imagine. Many move pretty consistently throughout childhood, and going back to their parents' countries of citizenship is a fun holiday taken once a year. Like all people, third culture kids, or TCKs, are constantly searching for a cultural identity, which, when you grow up immersed in a myriad of cultures, can be difficult. This diagram accurately shows the meaning of third culture in the term third culture kid. As Dr. Kaysen explains, the third culture is not an integration of the parent's culture and that of residents, but rather a unique and messy conglomeration of all the cultures that the individual experienced in a significant way. There are many different kinds of third culture kids. My husband and I are both third culture kids. We are so different in our experiences. My husband, an American by birth, was born in Manila, Philippines. He lived there for a while, then moved to Vanuatu, back to the Philippines, Singapore, Australia, and then to the USA for college. His parents worked for the Asian Development Bank in private business, so he would fall into the category of business kids. I was born in Hawaii, then moved to Singapore when I was 4. My parents and 2 younger sisters are still there. My parents worked in the fashion and commercial industry. We didn't so much move as we did immigrate. We became Singaporean permanent residents. My sisters and I went to public school, and all 3 of us speak Mandarin. I would fall into the category of other, even though this is such a broad category. I still identify with being a third culture kid as much as my husband does. I'm not Singaporean, and I don't feel at home in America. Like many TCKs, I consider the whole globe to be my home. A child's manner of exposure to different cultures and living internationally plays a huge role in how their experiences manifest into their own personal cultural identity. Military children usually spend most of their time on the base, which is often far away from anything else. They usually attend an international school, but go from the base to school and back, since they're so far away from each other usually. There are exceptions, of course, but in general, military kids fraternize with other military kids. This is the most well-known of the reasons for living an international life. Many people, when they hear I was raised overseas, immediately ask if my parents were in the military, which they weren't. Children that go overseas with non-military but government parents tend to live overseas for the longest amount of time, and the amount of interaction with locals as well as other people from their passport country varies from parent to parent. So it really just depends on the family values, and things like that. Of all types of TCKs, the religious and missionary kids interact and integrate the most with the local population, and the least with people from their own passport country. Missionary parents are likely to have an advanced degree, with 83% of religious or missionary parents holding such a qualification. There are high levels of interaction between the local population as well as people from their passport country for business kids. Their parents are often involved in international business, so large corporations, and they get taken overseas on what we call the expat package. So their house, their car, their vacations, everything is paid for. So it's usually kids whose parents get sent overseas because of business and become third culture kids because of that. They tend to live more comfortable lives than had they stayed home. And then there's others. Now, this includes such a huge range of people that I think most third culture kids would probably fall into this category. But that is just my own speculation. Involvement for children in the others category, involvement in the local culture and the culture of their passport country completely depends on the parents and their values, just like for a lot of the others. And it says that this group is the least likely to live overseas for a long period of time, but the statistics don't actually take into account people like myself who moved and stayed in the country that they moved to. So I think that there needs to be more research done in this specific area. Now, the benefits of growing up a third culture kid, I can say personally, um, there were so many benefits to being raised this way. You know, a keen global awareness is something that is instilled deeply in a person when they are in cultures that are different from their own the majority of the time. Growing up internationally teaches young people how to cope with saying goodbye at a young age because it instills in them the understanding that, you know, most goodbyes aren't forever and the world isn't as big as you know, we think that it is. These benefits stay with a person for the duration of their lifetime and often wield a very strong influence over many decisions that a person will make. There are some disadvantages, though. When you spend so much of your life overseas, you are bound to become more sensitive to cultural similarities and differences. So, third culture kids often have the hardest time identifying with people that are from the same country as their home country, or you know, we refer to it as the country, your passport country, the country that your passport is from. And there's a plethora of research that has shown that when third culture kids go home or go, you know, to their back to their passport country for university, they have huge problems becoming integrated into a culture where people don't really understand them or their previous lifestyle. Many third country kids go back to their passport country for university, or they move back when their parents' contracts are over. After living in so many different cultures, it would seem surprising that they feel any culture shock at all. But for many third culture kids, the most profound sense of culture shock is felt when they return to their quote unquote home country. And a big problem with this is that, you know, when you go somewhere that you look like everyone, you speak like everyone for the most part, you know, people expect you to be a local. You look like a local, but you feel internally like a foreigner, and this can create a real sense of cultural confusion with your own identity. For many people, you know, your sense of home and what it represents provides an internal sense of stability and comfort. For TCKs, this sense of home is non existent, and coming to terms with that psychologically can be very difficult. For some, this creates a pathway to accepting that the world and anywhere on it is home. And for others, it builds an insatiable wanderlust, almost like an endless search for a home that doesn't exist. For many of us, you know, third culture kids, it's kind of a mix between the two. You're always traveling and you're always looking for home, and almost trying to fill that void. But it's, you know, seemingly impossible. Creating a stable cultural identity when one is exposed to such a myriad of diverse cultures can be difficult. There is quite a bit of research that has found that people that grow up as third culture kids tend to continue living international lifestyles as adults. Many TCKs build their cultural identity upon the third, often invisible culture that they have created with the rest of their international nomadic peers. Sociologist Dr. Rachel May Kaysen oriented TCKs as cosmopolitans rooted in the expatriate communities of their childhoods, continuing in mobility and self conscious otherness into adulthood and moving through place as elite vagrants. While this is not the most glamorous way to kind of explain third culture kids. It is accurate. And I think most of the third culture kids that I know for myself, my husband, and all of our friends that have grown up through this lifestyle, all of us have grown into adulthood and maintained that lifestyle. I think I know two people that grew up as third culture kids that have since moved back and settled in their parents' home country, and there is quite a bit of internal conflict surrounding that, in the sense that finding people that relate to you in your earlier life is very difficult. I will leave you with this quote. The concept of cultural identity and all that it entails is evolving, and it changes with each person that becomes a global citizen instead of being confined to one place. While the transition may be not without its bumps in the road, it is a necessary and a beneficial one. The more we identify with one another, the smaller the world becomes. By being raised and raising our children in as international a manner as possible, we are changing the cultural identity of humans as a species. Thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoyed my presentation.